You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hey guys, good to be back with you all again. This is episode number 471 of Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. And I am Mighty Blue, also known as Steve Adams. It's an exciting week because not only do we have Tina Tempest, or Chunky, back on the show to talk about something very dear to my heart, but we're also kicking off our Mighty Blue Class of 2025 with the first conversation of 4 before he heads out on trail in early March with Dave Santee, or Freebird. Dave will be along after Tina. And given the length of the show, I'm dividing the next chapter of Emily Leonard's Happy Hiking into 2 sections, with the first part today as Emily enters the White Mountains, then the second part, not surprisingly, next week. We've already had Tina Tempest on the show to tell us about her 2009 SOBO Appalachian Trail thru-hike. I met her on my own NOBO hike in 2019 when I was lucky enough to stay at the aptly named Quarterway Inn, a hostel that Tina shares with her husband Brett near Marion, Virginia. Not only did I get to hang out with some awesome people over an equally awesome breakfast, I had the first and only experience of wearing a skirt for the majority of the day. Yep, that's what an AT hike will do for you. Anyway, we've already heard about most of that, and I asked Tina on the show today to bring her story forward from the last time we spoke, with particular emphasis on one of her ventures in making crafts that really touched me in a big way. Tina will be on in a moment. After Tina, Dave Santee is having a pack shakedown with his reasons for taking certain items on his AT hike next month. Beth isn't starting till April, so we'll get to hear her 4 pre-hike conversations with me in early March. I haven't decided exactly what these 4 conversations are going to be about yet, but I know we'll talk about motivation and inspiration at some point. I'd really like to do what we once did with Bruce Mattson on his Returning to Katahdin podcast, when we did a kind of takeoff of a British radio show that's been running since the 1950s called Desert Island Discs. The premise of that show is that you're abandoned on a desert island, and you have to name the 8 songs you want to have with you on the island. It was a fun way of learning more about Bruce. In that episode, I actually played a snippet of each song, but that tends to run afoul of copyright, so Dave and I may have to sing his choices. I haven't quite worked that out yet. Anyway, if you have any ideas of things we should talk about in these 4 shows, for both Dave and Beth, just drop me a line with your suggestions at steve@hikingradionetwork.com, and we'll try to incorporate the best ideas. But before we get to all that, there's this. Okay guys, quick question for you. How many of you seen a picture of the Grand Canyon, or even visited and stared over the edge and thought, that is a mighty big hole. I wonder what's down there. Well, I've been down there. In 2002, I went whitewater rafting with my son, Pete. We were in the canyon for 6 days and 5 nights, eventually rafting for 179 miles before we were taken out by helicopter. It was an awesome trip, and we were both aware that we were in a place that so few people get the privilege of seeing. Well, TSX Challenge can help you see what it's like down there. They offer backpacking experiences on some of the most remote trails in the Grand Canyon, trails so off the beaten path they need a 4-wheel drive just to reach them. And get this, on one trek you actually have to float across the Colorado River, and let me tell you, that can move pretty fast. They call it the Rim to Rim Extreme Challenge. It does sound epic. TSX offers a range of Grand Canyon experiences, great for new and experienced backpackers alike. If you've been waiting for the right moment to do something really extraordinary, this could well be it. Check out TSX Challenge's Grand Canyon Treks, and don't forget to use the code MIGHTYBLUE at checkout for 10% off. So now, let's meet again Tina Tempest, or Chunky. So today we've got an old friend to the show once more. This is Tina Tempest, or the ludicrously named Chunky. Hey Tina, thanks for coming back to the show.
Good to be back, Mighty Blue.
Now, you know I think this is a silly name for you because you're a slip of a thing, as I used to say. Why are you called Chunky? And I know you've mentioned it before, but I'd really like you to tell people why you're Chunky again, because it's a good story.
Yeah, so when my friend and I decided to hike the AT, we wanted to do an old-fashioned blog. And at the time, it was when you wanted to be a little bit anonymous on the internet, which is kind of a funny thing now.
Yes.
But so we started our blog and we used our trail names to set up the account and everything. And my friend had picked Sisu because that means perseverance in Finnish. And then I picked Shakti, which kind of means power and strength, because I had been living in India and that was kind of a television commercial where a little boy drinks some chocolate milk and then he got all strong and was like, Shakti! And he thought he could do anything. And so I thought that was a really good mantra for the AT. But it turns out it's really hard to pronounce. And so we met this old timer in the 100-mile wilderness our first week or so on trail. And he asked what our trail names were. And we said, oh, we're Sisu and Shakti. And he said, huh? Tutu and Chunky? And then, of course, that's what sticks.
Yeah, as it should do.
Yeah,
So now you were going southbound at the time, and I say we told the story of the hike and how you started the Quarterway Inn, which is a great hostel, by the way. So today we're going to take the story forward a few steps because it's had a direct influence on me, particularly recently. And I'm going to come to that in a minute. But first, I thought I'd ask you for an update on the Quarterway Inn and, what's the current status of it?
Well, I've been running the Quarterway Inn every spring since 2015, and it's been awesome. It's only open April, May, and June, which does make me feel bad for the southbounders because I was a southbounder, and a lot of things aren't open for southbounders.
Traitor.
I know you got to be tough to be a SOBO. Giving them the opportunity to be tough. But this year. I don't know. There was a lot of damage to the trail and in the south of us. And I know the Conservancy is encouraging people to consider alternate hikes, maybe southbounds or flip-flops. And, our area, we were kind of on the northern edge of the damage. So right around us, it's actually pretty okay there. But since I rely on just those northbound hikers coming through in April, May, and June, I don't know that it'll be a really great season for me.
Well, it's interesting. I don't think any of us know yet what's going to happen, do we? Because I know the registration numbers are down, but that may be because they've heard that there are closures and so on and rerouting. But, people who want to hike the trail and have planned it and wanted to do it for years and years and years, I don't think they're going to be put off too much. So I suspect the numbers will be somewhere near where they were last year, even though everyone says they're down so much. Yeah,
and they, the overall numbers last year were down too. I didn't really feel much of the effects of that. I had a wonderful season, and I hope that can continue. But to be honest, there are so many more hostels than when I started this.
Sure.
And, I do this as a business. And I do need to make money at it, or I need to be doing other things to pay my bills. Of course. And so I have to think about it, more than a lot of other hostel owners that maybe, inherited family land, or, they live there as their retirement dream and that's what they're spending their money on. I more so have to focus on, is this going to support me through this next year, or what else can I be doing during that time? So I've given myself a deadline of the AT kickoff down in Georgia. I'll be heading down there regardless, but I need to tell people, hey, come see me in 40 days or, carry on. And might sit this one out and focus on other things. But.
So you've done this, as you say, since 2015, which is quite a long time. You've seen people come and go, and you've seen attitudes change and I guess gear change and so on. What are the significant differences you've seen as a hostel owner since 2015?
Well, for my hostel personally, we hadn't had real internet there until, the middle of 2022 is when, the middle of 2023 is when I got actual fiber internet.
Didn't we have to go and plug in a cord somewhere up the road to get something?
Yeah, you could maybe get lucky out by the mailbox and get a cell signal, or you could walk to the top of the hill where I tell everybody the view is beautiful, so it's worth the walk. And then you could maybe get a Verizon signal up there too.
All right.
But we did have a landline phone that people were able to use to make phone calls. But it got more and more troublesome for me, trying to operate a business and serve my customers and give them what they want.
Sure.
When they'd show up and be like, "You don't have internet?" And I'm like, yeah, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. But we did end up our county got a grant to connect every household to fiber internet. And
Nice.
that truly has been a game changer. It really has allowed me to do my work faster.
Yeah, sure.
And the hikers appreciate it too. On the flip side of that, though, is, I spent a lot of time and money investing in what I say is the trail's finest VHS collection. And I have a huge board game closet, and we have guitars and a ukulele and all kinds of different sitting areas and reading material and everything. And since the good old internet came, there's a lot less of people sitting around together enjoying, 3 movies in a row or playing board games or putting together puzzles. And
isn't that fascinating, though? And I noticed it for my 2019 hike compared to my 2014, as there was more signal available 5 years after I'd first gone. First thing people would do was get in the shelter, see if they had signal, and then they'd start talking if they didn't have it. And I know yours is the one that I remember so well being at, that because it was better for not having internet, frankly, at the time. May not be for you, for your business and so on, but as you say, we'd sit around, we watched, was it Lonesome Dove? About 8 hours.
Oh gosh,
8 hour
dedicate
movie.
your whole day to that.
And if you remember, I know you do remember because you told me you remember, I was sitting in a skirt the whole bloody film, wasn't I?
The green leopard print skirt, I believe.
Classy as ever. Yeah. So you've noticed the difference. What about in their attitude? Have attitudes changed, or are these still the same lovely people that you knew when you first started?
Yeah, I think the people are the same. I think there's a lot. Let me see how to phrase this. There's a lot more people that have less experience in backpacking, which I personally think is fabulous.
Interesting.
And I'm also 500 miles into the trail. So the people that truly had no idea what they were getting into and realized that they hated it and it was not for them, I don't get them. They've already said goodbye.
Yeah.
But that has been wonderful to see that change of just, you don't have to be born into a hiking family to be aware of the AT and to be able to get out and get on it, which I think is wonderful. But yeah, there's a little... Let's see, I would say there's a little more of the, and I don't want to use the word entitlement because I think that is overused, but so there's so many people there's so much like, quote, trail magic, like the hiker feeds and all of that goes on, that sometimes I've had more of this in the latter years, I'll say, of people show up and be like, oh, wow, like this is all free. I'm like, oh, well, no, I am running a business. And would you go into a gas station and assume that the food on the shelf is free? And they're like, oh. And so there's kind of a weird blurring of the line there where I'm very clear about everything. Like, I run a business, I charge for things. Of course, I offer work for stay and, I'm a charitable person. But yeah, there's just kind of a weird dynamic there where the more and more things people get for free, it's just a little strange.
Listen, Tina, you shouldn't worry about any of that. You give, as somebody who's eaten breakfast at Tina's on my 83, and by eating, I mean I just ate tons of food. You lay on the biggest bloody breakfast of all time. Yes. So give us a wee sample of what you served up, because you just have so much stuff out of there, and it is all good. So in fact, it's so good that you can't afford to miss any of it. That's why I rationalise it anyway.
Yes. Well, I like to call it a 10-piece extravaganza. And so I always have, coffee and tea and orange juice and a couple of different fruits and a meat, either bacon or sausage. And then the big hit, everybody loves my baked French toast. Within that, I usually put blackberries that I've picked the previous spring and I keep in the freezer.
Silly not to.
Yeah. And then I also make, we have our own bees. So we have a honey business also. And so I serve the honey, usually on biscuits or fresh bread, cornbread. Then we have apple butter. I always make some kind of baked good, muffins or scones or I don't know, a pie sometimes. So, but one hiker mentioned, he's like, God, I just miss pumpkin pie. And so I'm like, I can make a pumpkin pie. So at breakfast the next day, he had a pumpkin pie. And I try and mix it up if people stay multiple days, so they don't have the same thing.
Oh, I virtually everything, I tell you. No question. Now, and I know you actually lost the big tree in front of the house, didn't you?
So we didn't lose the big tree.
Oh,
so
right.
the really old sycamore, that one is still standing.
Okay.
But off to the west of the house, there were 2 giant catalpa trees. And, it just breaks my heart. But they both fell over during Helene. They crashed down some other trees, took out my clothesline. But
it didn't take out your house. That's the important bit, isn't it, really?
And had the wind been blowing the other direction, we would be having a completely different conversation.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel very, very fortunate.
And when I checked your website this morning, I see, and I do remember you mentioning you had the honey business, and I see that you've become quite the cottage industry in your own way, haven't you?
Yeah.
So let's start with the honey. When did that you actually start that, and how did you learn about doing that sort of thing? Did you do your own beekeeping and that sort of thing?
Oh, yeah. Yep. So what was it? 2012. My husband really likes to just learn things, So one winter he took an HVAC class just because he wanted to understand how refrigeration worked. And then the next year he took a beekeeping class because he just wanted to learn about bees.
What a nerd.
Yeah. He is a true nerd.
I say that with love, by the way.
Yes. He is an engineer. So, you know.
There you go.
But yeah, the beekeeping, if you start learning about bees, it's really, really easy to get obsessed with them because they are absolutely fascinating creatures. So that spring we got our first 2 hives, and then bees just keep growing and growing and multiplying. And so at our peak, let's see, this was in 2020 when we had the most time because everything else was pretty slow and the hostel wasn't open. We had about 100 hives going at that time.
Wow, I didn't know it was that big.
Yeah, 5 different apiaries in 2 states. And
wow.
Yeah, and I kind of, was periphery on the beekeeping part of it. And then I got a little obsessed too and took the class and really fell in love with that part of it too. But it's hard work.
I bet it is.
Boxes of honey and
but I was fascinated that when I read about your beekeeping, that you love the different tastes that honey.
Oh, yeah.
I thought honey was honey. That all tastes like honey. But it tastes different depending on the season, even.
Yeah, yep. So we're lucky where we have 5 different apiaries, and one's up at the hostel, and then 4 are down around Charlotte, North Carolina.
Right.
And, even hives that are within 10 miles of each other can produce completely different honey. And it's just based on what the bees are foraging on in each season and each location. And we go to great pains to keep all the harvests separate. And then when we sell it, we have a little tag on the back that says what season it was harvested in and what apiary it's from.
How nice.
And most people, are used to getting a little bear from the grocery store, which is a mix of God knows what from God knows where. And, it's all blended together and may or may not actually be honey. But when you have true honey from a bee,
I've got the bear.
Yeah. Well, you need to go to your local farmer's market and find a local beekeeper and start getting your honey from there.
So do you, people, I know we're going off a bit of a tangent here, but I'm fascinated by this when I read it this morning. We have you have wine tasting and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Can you tell differences in honey and say where that might be from and your own honey? Really?
Yeah. So, and my husband has a more developed palate than I do when it comes to that. But, he'll be like, oh, this is mostly tulip poplar. And then, oh, this is all, blackberry. And it is really interesting. And, along those same lines, there's an aster that we have a ton of up in Virginia, but the honey from it really smells terrible. It doesn't taste that bad, but it smells bad. So we make sure to pull all our honey off before that starts blooming because we don't want that smell in the honey from that certain kind of aster.
How interesting. Yeah. Now, the other thing I discovered today, I am and have been for all my life, not many people know this about me, but I'm an absolute board game nut.
Yeah.
Over the years, I've had more than 400 board games in my house. I've sold about 250 on eBay. I mean, some are 50 or 60 years old, some had never been played.
Wow.
So I still have them. I don't know what I'm going to do with them one day. When I die, no one cares about board games anymore.
They do.
But I see that you invented one and with a friend of yours. Tell us, it's a great name, by the way. Tell us about Mortal Frenemies.
My friend, this was a few years ago, we decided there was this game that we played when we were in AmeriCorps back when we were in our early 20s, and it was just kind of a goofy card game. And then one time we went and got together with a bunch of our AmeriCorps friends as a reunion, but we were really, really sick. And so we didn't go anywhere. Everybody else was out snowshoeing and skiing. And we're like, we should go back to that game and like make it an actual like game. Because it was more of just like an activity before. And so we sat and noodled on it. And probably over the course of a year and a half, we came up with the name, which is Lord of the Things. And then we handmade the whole thing. So like I carved the rubber stamps to stamp all the tokens, carved the stamp for the bag, wrote out all the instructions, everything. And I don't know if you know this, but there's a whole underworld of board game design.
I do know that, yes.
You can go to conferences and there's, oh my God, it's just such a unique little subculture that I had no idea existed. But when we started this, an old friend of mine from grad school, he was into game design. So he invited us to come to a conference in Cleveland and, we got a lot of good feedback on it. And we're like, let's just try and make it and sell it. And we've probably sold 300 copies of it.
Nice.
Yeah. So
now, the real reason I wanted to have you back on the show is because for my birthday this year, my girlfriend Dana gave me a little package that came from you. And Bead by Bead Adventures is your main side gig. I think we've already talked about that in the past. First off, tell us what it is, then I'll jump back in after that. Tell us what Bead by Bead Adventures is.
All right, so that's my other business where I make necklaces that are maps of long-distance trails that hikers or their loved ones back home can wear and use to track their progress. So, for example, the AT, which is the first necklace I made, each bead on that necklace is about 25 trail miles, and the different color beads represent the different states. And it comes with a little mileage key, and the thing that everybody loves is that they have this little movable tracking ring on the necklace. So as you go up the trail, you could move that tracking ring and you can see where you are in the grand scheme of your hike, how much you've done, how much you have left, what borders are coming up soon.
And the colours of all the beads are representative of the trail and the states it goes through and the towns there are there. It's such a simple idea. And I'm not wishing to be rude here, Bob, but you know what I mean? It's quite a simple concept, but I look around, and because I look around, there's not anything like it that I can see, and it's just a pretty unique thing. And so I want to jump back in now and say that Dana had called you, and or email. I'm not sure if it was email or phone call conversation, but she asked you what? What did she ask you to do?
So and I know that you love my AT necklace.
I do.
But so she emailed and said,
until the one you made for me this time, I've been wearing my AT necklace since the day I got it. So.
Oh, I love it. So Dana reached out and said that you had a birthday coming up and that you're very hard to buy for. But
Well, a wife normally do it.
And she was wondering if I could make you a necklace for the Southwest Coast Path trail that you had recently done. And it was a pretty quick turnaround. I think it was a couple weeks or so.
Impressive.
And so I wrote back and I said, well, I can. And if it wasn't you, I probably would have said, oh, hey, no way. I don't have time for that.
Because I would have had a go at you on the show, would I? Is that why?
So I was like, yeah, I can do it, but it'll be, kind of a quick and dirty version because I don't have time to do all the research that I normally put into the designs for these necklaces. So, oh, nice. You have it on right now.
Yeah, people can't see this, but I'm just showing. Oh, right, I'm wearing that necklace right now, yeah.
So I got to do my research, and I made Dana promise, though, that I'd send you the quick and dirty version, but then you had to help me finalize the design for the final necklace, which you have helped with.
So I now have the one and only down and dirty necklace of the Southwest Coast Path, which I'm going to garb in my life. But as you say, one of the things that Dana committed to, on my behalf, by the way,
yes,
was that I'd help you develop it, I guess. So how do you approach any trail to develop one of these? Because it can't be that straightforward. Although I know there's a lot of information on the internet now. Now you've got fiber optic cable, you can actually check out for it as well. Where's your start point?
So, even if I haven't hiked all these long trails, I run a hostel, I eat breakfast with people, I hang out with people.
Oh, yeah.
I hear a lot about all the different trails. So that's kind of where my general knowledge base comes from, is just chatting with people about the trails. And then when I sit down to design it, I try and figure out how people in their minds as they're hiking them think of the trails. What sections are they broken up into? What milestones are they looking forward to? And then I sit down with, the different guidebooks or far out or whatever it is and kind of start figuring that part out. Then when I get a design almost done, that's when I start reaching out to people that have hiked that before. And if I'm working on the design during hostel seasons, it's great because I just ask people, I'm like, hey, have you done the Arizona Trail? Great.
Yes.
Let's sit down for a half hour and you can have a free breakfast, So that's great to do the design during hostel season because I have the hikers right there. But now I'm working on the Florida Trail and I've just started sending that one out for review. And yeah, so it's fun getting that feedback.
Yeah, you told me about that one. The Florida Trail, because there are reroutes. How do you get around that? Which I thought was reroutes. Alternates. Yeah. So tell us that, because you can go one way around Lake Okeechobee or another way, can't you? And I'm sure it diverges a few other times as well. How do you actually manage that part of it?
So that one, instead of having just one strand of beads, I have a strand of beads that then splits into two where those alternates go. And so depending on which way you choose, you'll, and it comes with different tracking rings for those sections. So you'll, kind of move the tracking ring on the one section and let the other one go. That has been a little bit of a hard problem to solve. And there's another trail like that. The Colorado Trail has the same thing. You can go east or west through the collegiates.
Right.
But yeah, I think I found the solution for that one. The Florida Trail is the first true test of it. But it's funny because I used to make a necklace in high school. I mean,
really?
About yar who yar, I used to make beaded necklaces for everybody, and I would make a design where you split into two sections and then it would come back together and split again and come back together. And I'm like, oh, hey, I've been doing this since I was 12.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
So the idea is that either the person themselves can wear it, or, as you say, that they can wear it back home, which I think is not even thought about that. That's a lovely way of doing it. Are there? I mean, how many have you got so far?
Trails, I think on the website there's probably 6 that are done and for sale, and then I probably got another 9 that are pretty close that I will have done by the springtime.
And you're constrained really to getting, I think it's 80 or 88 or 86 or something like that beads, aren't you?
Yeah, I try to keep it standard just so my packaging works for everything.
Oh, yeah, that's another thing. It comes with this lovely little card which shows you what all the towns are and what the various different McAfee Knob and places like that. So it follows you down. You can follow it down the trail, and that's a lot. I've still got the original one of those two as well.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and since we've spoken, I have given you some feedback and suggested just a few colour changes that reflect the Southwest Coast Path. Who puts all these together?
Me. And I have recently been able, I have 2 of my hiking friends, actually the woman that I thru-hiked the AT with, she helped me bead a few of them, or I shouldn't say a few, I should say a couple hundred of them. And then now I have a local person from Marion. She's great and she's so good. And she's the kind of person that just needs to be busy, have her hands busy. So if she's not crocheting, she is embroidering, cross-stitching. Wow. And so she absolutely loves this beading work, which is great for me. That really helps me get more done.
I've never understood people who can't just sit and slob in front of the TV doing nothing, just having a beer on the side or something. This need to do something all the time drives me crazy. Yeah.
I mean, that's me. I always like to have my hands busy. So this is the perfect thing for me too. I really enjoy crafting.
Now, when we spoke the other day, and I gave you my my feedback on the Southwest Coast Path, I also said to you that I'm going to do the Camino later this year. And I said, any chance you could do one? Because I'll take 25 with me, see if I can flog them out there for you. And in a couple of days, you came up with it's a PDF you do. You send it to me with a mock-up. And it's remarkable how much you've absorbed in that period of time to work out the regions and the politics and the towns and so on.
And that, I mean, I had started that one well before we talked. That
right,
was, you
right,
know,
okay. Oh,
so
good,
it wasn't,
good.
didn't all happen.
I was
within
incredibly
that week,
impressed by that being so quick. You're given that way. You should have said, yes, I did it in just a couple of days.
Yeah.
It was easy,
I wish it was that easy. But
so did any of those change? And the one I did say, you must somehow identify the meseta, because that is an area that everybody knows about. And they either want to miss it, or they want to cycle through it, or they just want to love it for what it is. I've been writing my book about the Camino, and I've just gone through the meseta and the Camino. I'm hopeful that that my talk about the meseta in my book isn't as boring as the meseta actually is itself. but no, the meseta is just basically 8 or 9 days of wheat fields, but they are such a distinct part of the Camino. So when do you reckon that's going to be ready and will it be ready before I go so I can take some out there?
Oh, yes, I told you it would be. And I if there's one thing I'm good at, it's a dedeadline for somebody else. For myself, not so great. But if I have pressure from somebody else, I will meet that deadline. So
what are your future plans with these? Are you going to just look for more and more? Because I presume you've got the model now, haven't you? You know what you need. You know you've got the number of beads you need. You need to basically divide the number of miles by the number of beads. Hence the 25 miles for an AT one, and I think it's going to be about 5 miles for the Camino one, something like that, isn't it?
Yeah. I can't remember what it was.
10 miles.
7 or something.
It's about 10 miles, yes. About 8 or 10 kilometers, which is about 6 miles, yeah.
Yeah, so my plan is to do as many trails as I can. And the thing I struggle with is just, I have so many different balls in the air with different things I do that having the dedicated time to just work on it. So the first couple of weeks in January, I really was focused on designing more necklaces. And once your brain gets in that space, it is easier. But because I'm like, and then I need to bottle a bunch of honey and deliver wholesale orders and do this and do that, and I'm all over the place.
Have I missed out have I missed out some of your other cottage industries as well?
No, the main ones are the Quarterway Inn, this one, and then the Honey Company. And the Honey Company takes everything over in the fall because that's through the holidays. That's when we do most of our sales is at the holiday markets and
I'm sure.
I'm sure. Yeah, so I live a very seasonal life. Yes.
So tell me then, if you can share it, what are the trials that are already in the works?
Well, the CDT's done. I just have to put it on the website. That one's ready to go. Florida Trail, I'm in the review stage for that one. Same with the Allegheny Trail, the two that you're involved in, the Southwest Coast Path and the Camino.
Sure.
And then the Grand Canyon, the Rim to Rim, the Colorado Trail, the Long Trail, the Superior Hiking Trail, Wonderland Trail. Let's see, what else I got in there? Yeah, and then there's a whole, I'm not ready to talk about this yet, but there's a whole other suite of necklaces that are in the works too. But those you'll have to wait a little longer for. I hadn't realized it had developed as much as it had until I started looking at your website, and it's impressive as hell. It really is to have that idea and then to bring it to life. If I can't emphasize enough to people how fantastic it feels to have the AT represented on me the whole time. Yeah. And it's a special thing. Every single day I have a shower, I take my necklace off because I don't want to break it. But it always goes straight back on afterwards. It's a special gift for anybody. So Tina's not paying me for an ad here. I'm just telling you, I would never have Tina back on, unless I liked her, or I just really love the thing you do, and I think it's just a great addition to the trail. So where can people get them and the honey and the game? Yeah. So probably the one-stop shop where you can get to all the websites from the other one is if you go to quarterwayinn with 2Ns.com. That'll have the links to all the other websites on there. But the necklace company is Bead by Bead Adventures, and that's gobeadbybead.com is the website. And then we're on Instagram and Facebook too. I do a terrible job at marketing myself and my products.
That's where you need me. I'm going to be your Spanish assistant, mate. I tell you, I'm going to be out there in Spain flogging these to these local. I tell you, who'll buy them. The Koreans, there were tons of Koreans on the trail when I went out there. They'll buy anything out there. I see them at any shop. They're buying something all the time. I'm not being rude about Koreans. I'm just saying they like buying stuff. So get them to me. I'll tell you. I might even contact you halfway through to get you to send me some more. But then the cost of sending out to Spain might be a bit excessive. But so you better let me put them in my carry-on. Okay. Well, look. I wish you well with this. I think it's a lovely thing that you do. You provide a fantastic service to the trail and all the trails. And all I can say is I just wish you well with it. And I want to come back having sold at least those 25 Camino ones as well. And with my mover marker all the way at the end where I finish the Camino for a second time. But look, thanks for coming on, Tina. And I just wish you well in the future, okay?
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers then. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Love Tina. It was so nice of her to take on Dana's request and put together my unique Southwest Coast Path necklace. She's making changes based partly on some of my suggestions, and I'm really looking forward to spreading the word on the Camino in early May. These necklaces are a constant reminder to me of epic journeys that I've done, and the ring to track your progress makes them dynamic for both you and your family. Check them out. And that stuff about board games? Totally true. In fact, I'm hosting a game night with friends in a couple of weeks' time. Maybe they are making a comeback. And if you're heading out on the 80 this year, make a point of dropping in on Tina at the Quarterway Inn. I guarantee that you won't be disappointed. Funnily enough, just as I was writing that down, Tina texted me saying that she is opening on schedule on the 1st of April. How about that? Anyway, check out her Gather Ye Honey business as well. All the links will be in the show notes. I want to give thanks to our donors again. This week, recurring donors are Natisha Webb, Ninka DeHaas and Gal Posey. Thank you for stepping up again, ladies. It really makes a difference. If you get some value from what I bring you each week, then why not join our lovely donors and keep our shows going? It's easy to do. You can donate from our website, hikingradionetwork.com. You can Zelle me or Venmo me and even mail me a check. So I hope I read your name out next week on the show. Now, let's catch up with a very excited Dave Santee at the start of our Mighty Blue class of 2025. Here's Dave. Well, we're on with Dave Santee again, just a month out from his start date. Hey, Dave, getting excited yet?
Good morning, Mighty Blue. I am very excited. I can't wait to get started. In fact, if I could leave tomorrow, I'd just go tomorrow.
Well, why can't you? That's the thought. Why can't you go tomorrow?
Oh, first off, I got a flight to Atlanta booked for March 3rd, so I can't quite I could change it, I suppose. Yeah. My wife is going, my brother and sister-in-law are both going, and a friend out to Atlanta. So we're all booked together.
All right.
We're staying at Amicalola Lodge the night before. So they're going to walk the first, the 0.9 from the parking lot back down and then back. So they're all going to get a little bit of the AT experience, but mostly it's just logistics between now and then, wrapping up details, leaving the house for a while. I'm still not done with the logistics.
I've got to tell you what, leaving your life behind, and you have a full life, I'm sure anyway, but leaving your life behind is quite a daunting prospect sometimes. And so you've got to get your head around that before you actually before that day comes. You've got to get your head around that's what you're going to be doing, and whatever you do in the house, your wife's now going to be doing. So
no, I understand, and that's describing it as a daunting proposition is exactly where I'm sitting at the moment. It's like the hike, the trail, whatever, that's fine. I'm excited. It's the leaving everything behind, just your mental shift and logistics and everything. It's just kind of the thing that's holding me for the next couple of weeks.
Sure, we'll make that shift. But today we're going to talk about gear and some of the choices that you've made. And you've uploaded everything to lidapack.com, and with your permission, I'm going to share that link in the show notes. Are you done, or are you still adding and taking stuff out, or is that the definitive list?
I'd like to say it's done, it's the definitive list, but there isn't a whole lot of time to change anything at this point. So, yes, I'm a bit of a gear junkie, and I also overthink everything. So everything on the list has evolved over time, and whether it's the absolute right choice, it's today's choice, and we're running out of time to have it be anything other than the final list.
Sure. And in terms of percentages, don't tell me which items yet, but we can talk about the items in a minute. Mm-hmm. How much of it is new, and how much of it is secondhand?
It's pretty much all new. Well, I bought a Boy Scout knife secondhand. It's just kind of a lark and a tribute to Carrie, since I was a Boy Scout as a kid and can't find the knives and the stuff. So, but it's all new.
On Lighterback, I think what do you call it? Is a 1970s knife? It says 19070. I thought,
yeah, 1970s.
That's not 1970s.
Exactly.
19070.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought typo.
I thought it might be, but I wasn't quite sure. Okay, right.
The 1970s.
So let's start with the big three. Tell us,
sure.
And the reason I asked this, one of the main reasons I asked this is that the Durston X Mid, which is what you're taking, was when I went what it was the Z-Pax duplex, and it was all over the place. And I'm told more and more recently that Durston is starting to take its pace a little bit. So, what were your last couple of choices, and why did you choose that one?
The Durston, first off, you're absolutely right. From what I can tell, it's become the tent of choice. Sure. I started my research like everybody else does, looking at the ultralight tents, and it was between a Z-Pack and then Durston came up as well. And I like the Durston for its offset scenario with the trekking poles. You've got a good sized door, and I don't like the doors that kind of flop open and land on the ground. So they've got a zipper that kind of goes up and over. Right. So it's weight, but of course they're all playing in that weight category, let's say 20 ounces. And I went with the Pro 2 Plus, which is kind of ridiculous because that's like as big as you could possibly get, right? In a two-person. But, taking a bit of a cue from things you've said, even when you talk about your first adventure on the AT, you've got to live in there with your stuff. Right. I mean, you can leave it all outside in your vestibule and things like that, but I want the ability to have everything in with me. And I also recognize that there are going to be times and days when you're, I won't say trapped, but you're certainly held within your tent and you're kind of waiting something out, a storm.
Yes.
And you don't want the walls closing in any more than necessary. And I think the final answer to Durston is simply, I pulled the trigger and I bought it. It's an expensive tent. It's one of the few things I wouldn't rethink. Right? I'm just not going to,
You've actually used it though. Have you?
I've got plenty of nights in it. I'm perfectly happy with it. It's fussy. In the sense that you have to have this perfect rectangle square to get good tension on the corners when you lay it out. But it's not that big a deal.
How long did it take you to put up? Because I remember practicing
the first time?
practicing both of mine. I watched the video and it took me ages to get it done. But once I was on the top of Springer Mountain, I did it in about 3 or 4 minutes. So I was shocked how quickly I did it right. So how long did it take you to get this one up?
If I'm doing well, 4 or 5 minutes, it's as easy as staking out 4 corners. After that, it's done, right? You stick the poles in, you raise them up. There are no guidelines necessary. You can add guidelines if you want. And so in the short answer is you can get in a couple of minutes and not have a perfect, what they call perfect pitch. Sure. But if you spend a little more time pulling the corners and changing the rectangle, it could take a little bit longer.
You'll be playing with it all the time. You'll be pulling a bit of this and pulling a bit of that. Yes, that's what it goes. Yeah. But you'll get what you want. Remember, the most important thing is a flat spot, which I fail to do nearly all the time. Now,
I cannot see a flat spot with my eyes to save my life.
Now, your pack is the ULA Circuit. Once again, a very, very popular pack, but it's relatively heavy by today's standards. I mean, it's about 2 pounds, I think it is, and my one's about 15 ounces, something like that. Is that the one you've been using for a while, or did you get that new recently?
I've been using it since about last summer. So I had a week in Yosemite that it came with me, and it's gone, and it goes with me every day when I do my training hikes. Right, I do a couple of 2, 3, 4 mile loop every day, and I pack it with full weight just to get used to it. I had bought an Osprey, the Exos 58, which I really liked. It had a few quirks that I wasn't happy with, and then I wanted to drop the almost pound out of it, and so of pack weight. So then I bought the Circuit. But I will confess that I didn't just buy 2 packs. I probably bought a dozen. I swear, a dozen packs. I'm not kidding you. They all arrived. You would try them on. Go, it's not quite right. I mean, you named the major brand. I have had their pack sitting in my room, and I have learned that you can't test a pack without testing a pack.
Absolutely.
And so it becomes and then at some point, then you just have to commit, because you can't go out and test a pack for an overnight or something like that, get it all dirty and whatever, and then pretend you're going to send it back as a new pack. And so eventually I had a bunch of these packs in my rooms. I tried them on. I put some weight, walk around the block. But at some point, I just committed to the ULA, and I'm happy with it. It's a great.
And have you actually packed it with all the gear that's on that list yet?
Yes,
and
I
it
have.
feels quite nicely. And also, what's important, I think you'll find, is to know where everything is in the pack.
Yes.
So you worked out how you're going to do that?
I have. And as you go down the lighter pack list, you'll see there's an entire segment called bags or something like that.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's organization, right? And that's one thing when I changed from the Osprey. I didn't keep the Osprey. I still have the Osprey, and I used it for a couple of months, and I went a couple of overnights on it. One thing I liked is the brain and a little bit of organization to it. And so when I switched to the ULA, I decided I have to get organization dialed in.
Right.
And so everything's in their own waterproof, the little bags. So the 4 major, and we'll get down to it, but first aid, poop kit, toiletries, and electronics all are in their own small bags. But a bunch of stuff ends up in one larger hilltop packs, kind of a flat bottom. They're all Dyneema type packs, So anything that's loose, and even packs of, packaged other things will go in there. So by the time I'm packed, there's just one thing in the pack that has everything that's not, a larger scale item.
And are those bags, as you say, they're called Hilltop? Are they all the same color?
Oh no!
Right, I'm going to say because that's the important bit you need.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll have a little logo on them, or you choose, right. The first aid has the cross on it, and so and then the first aid and the toilet or the poop kit, whatever, will go into the mesh pocket on the outside of the pack to be readily accessible. Sure. Right. So, yeah.
And you've got with the quilt, not a sleeping bag. Is that something you've used before? Because I went with the quilt first time, and I know a lot of people when I was out there said, "Are you sure you never tried a quilt before?" I found it fantastic. So you obviously find it. Have you used this quilt before?
I have used this quilt every night that I've been out. I had purchased a sleeping bag, a mummy bag, REI Magma 15, beautiful bag. I got in it. I said, I'm going to drive myself bananas. I roll over a lot when I sleep, side, back, slide back, and it's just going to go everywhere. Sure. So as I did a little bit of the research, the Zen Bibby setups are fairly popular and alleviate that problem I described, which is the way you turn over and it's got the wings on the sheet that hold it in place. It's fantastic. It does as advertised, shall we say. But if you do look at my big 3 category, you'll see it highlights this sort of conundrum I've got of light versus comfort versus convenience kind of thing. Sure. So you'll see a couple items that are the most ultralight version of everything, and a couple of light items that you go, man, that's a little heavy for trying to keep your weight down. And so the Zen Baby setup is as a pure quilt heavy. I've got my thing. I looked. It's 36 ounces for the setup for the quilt and the sheet. Sure. You can certainly do lighter, but the convenience outweighs. And
if it works for you, I'd never actually heard of Zen Bibby before. So, and if it works for you, it's an important bit. What's it rating? What's it rated down to? What temperature?
It's a 10 degrees. Fine. So
that should be fine.
It should be.
You never know. You just never know. And by the way, I saw also you got a Durston ground sheet. Not just a bit of Tyvek.
No, I've been using a bit of Tyvek or the Polycro, whatever kind of sheet, and cut it to sort of shape, and I decided to get the Durston ground sheet. It's a couple ounces heavier, but again, it's convenience because it's perfectly shaped and has grommet holes on the ends, holes on the end, and so everything kind of lines up. Again, it's just about convenience rather than it's better. And certainly, people say ground sheet's a waste anyway, but we'll see.
No, I don't agree. I think it's a good thing to take. Although, frankly, I didn't take it my second time. So, and I actually use a white compactor trash bag for my pack. Is that what Nilofume is? I never heard of Nilofume. Okay, fine. That's
it's a plastic bag.
White
it's slightly heavier.
It's very important that it's white though. You lose everything. If you can't see anything once it's black inside, so white inside works.
It's clear-ish.
That's right. Oh, right. Okay.
Clear-ish, shall we say?
So your cook system, no cold soaking for you then, obviously.
No. I'm going with the Jetboil Stash. It's funny because people always talk about the Jetboil. Oh, it's so heavy and it's this, and they'll buy the Pocket Rocket and the Tokes cup, and that'll be their system. Right. The whole Jetboil Stash system is 7 ounces, which if you stove and cups, you maybe an ounce or two more. I just like because everything. It's self-contained.
Yeah,
it's just self-contained.
Yeah, nice.
You know. And
I see you're filtering with something I haven't seen before as well. Mm-hmm. Is that new for you? And where did you find that?
Well, I'm using the Platypus Quick Draw. Basically, what I've seen out there is you got your kind of 3 choices of filters, right? The Sawyer Squeeze, the Platypus, and the
Katadyn.
Yeah. Thank you. I was spacing for a moment. I use the Sawyer for almost the whole time. I just grabbed the Platypus, and I swear it has nothing to do other than the way the screw ends work on them, the caps and the screw ends. And the Platypus has a faster flow rate, and it's a little bit easier to clean. But it's another convenience question. I want to be able to take the CNOC bag, hook it up, screw it to the Platypus, and screw it to the bottle and let it hang, for example, if you're in camp, to filter out into your bottle.
Sure.
And you can do that with the Sawyer, no problem. You buy the little adapters. You can buy 3D printed caps for it, so when it's in your system, it's you can cap both ends so it doesn't leak out. The Platypus kind of comes with all those things as part of the system, and they all weigh about the same. So I'm it's just a convenience question.
And I see from your electronics list that you have a FlexTail pump, which I've got to tell you is a lifesaver. And actually, Beth, your fellow class of 25 member, who turned me onto the FlexTail pump. It is a miracle. It's a complete no-brainer.
Yeah.
I guarantee it's the thing that you wish you got if you hadn't got it.
Yeah, I am not going to sit there and blow up my sleep pad. It's one thing we didn't talk about back in the big 3 because I've got that probably the heaviest sleep pad I could probably get and still be lightweight. It's a newer version of the Thermarest, which is called the Neoloft, but it's 4 inches tall. It is so comfortable. Wow. It is incredibly comfortable. And again, the weight. I mean, there's no way I would have gotten the super ultralight pads anyway, because I want the wide at
you
least
need the
wide.
Comfort. You need the comfort.
Yeah, I want at least the wide and the enough R rating.
How tall are you, Dave, by the way?
Oh, I'm only 5'8". From a height standpoint.
Oh, you're okay then. Yeah.
I wasn't worried so much about the long as the wide. When I sleep on my back and you get your arms next to you, they flop off the side.
Yes.
So best case scenario, I was still looking at 18, 19, 20 ounce sleep pads of the various types. I went on the Yosemite trip with the REI Helix, which was really comfortable. I really enjoyed it, but it developed a leak about 4 nights in. So I spent the last couple of nights on the ground.
Dear.
Yeah, and I could not find the leak. Anyway, so I returned it, and at that point I'm like, I didn't need a pad right away, and the new Thermarest came up. So it's heavy at 29 ounces, but again, everything's incremental. It's only 4 ounces more than the REI. Well, yeah, but the REI was already 5 ounces heavier than.
And your total pack weight, your base weight is 24 pounds?
No, base weight is 17
pounds. Yeah. That's right. 17 pounds. I mean, you've got a lot of stuff in there. And I'm actually going to say, you've got a Garmin InReach and a Garmin watch. And I don't know either of that. I know what the InReach is. Does the Garmin watch, is that a crossover thing?
No. The two are going to sort of completely independent purposes. The InReach for its stated purpose, the messenger, contact my wife, keep myself safe. The watch is 1, a timepiece, and 2, I can track like the exercise. It's got exercise tracking, so every day you can track a hike, and it'll give you start. You can put your start and start and finish. It'll give you the total mileage, total elevation, things like that. Yeah. I've always tracked my hikes and bike rides and whatever on various Apple Watches and the like, and so I'm going. I like it. It amuses me. It's entertainment. It's otherwise it's not. It's nothing else. But the watch can hold for 4 or 5 days without charge. So it'll be something that it's things that the Apple Watch, for example, cannot do, especially if you're trying to track and exercise every day. So
that needs charging regularly. You're absolutely right. Every day, in fact. Yeah.
Every day, and I can't. You can't be fussing with that.
And is there anything special in terms of clothing you'd like to mention? I couldn't see anything there that I could disagree with. So, anything?
It's a good question. I mean, shoes are always special or not. Shoes are always the big, what are you going to, wear? What are you going to take? And, I know you've gone through the boots.
Yeah.
Hike.
Just got some more
trail runners as a which is which. And, I don't want to wear boots. I've had them over the past. I started wearing the trail runners 3 or 4 years ago and ended up on the Lone Peaks like everybody else. But I tried Topo. I've tried other brands. I do like I have slightly wide foot, so I like the wider shoe and the wider toe box.
Well, my toes still go black and drop off and all the time. And I don't think it's ever going to change now. I got one particular toenail right now, which is a shambles. If I wouldn't want to put the picture up there, but it does not look good at all. I've got to tell you. And I am delighted to know that you're taking a Helinox chair. Have you used,
absolutely.
Is that a new one, or is that something you've taken before?
I've taken it before, right. and you probably won't recall, but I even sent you an email maybe a year ago asking if what chair you use or take, and you responded.
That's right, it was you. That's right. That. Yes. Yeah. And do you like it?
I love it. Everybody's going to have their opinions on the chairs, and it's an extra pound. Yes, I'm not going to sit on a log. I'm not going to sit on a rock. I'm not going to, I'm just,
nor should you.
nor should I. And I've got a hiking buddy of mine. We went to Yosemite in November, and he always brings his chair. And we only went for a couple nights, and he was trying to reduce his pack weight. So I'm not going to bring the chair this time. So first night was nothing. Second night, I'm sitting in my chair. We have a campfire going, and he's leaning on a tree, bemoaning the fact that he did not bring his chair.
There you go. So, quite right. Yeah. And is there anything in your list there that you regard as a luxury, or have you pared everything down to what you exactly need? Because I know you got an umbrella as well, which makes sense, by the way, for all sorts of reasons. Mm-hmm. So what is a luxury as far as you're concerned?
Well, certainly the chair.
That's not.
That to me,
that's not okay. That's not at all.
Okay, maybe it's not a luxury. We'll say it's the
it's a necessary luxury.
A necessary luxury. Those things that you go, well, what are the things that are adding extra weight to your pack that if you really wanted to pare down, what could you get rid of? Maybe is the way I would answer the chair. Sure. I wouldn't get rid of it, but if I was trying to knock a pound off, that would be an easy pound. The umbrella probably has the same idea. Is it a luxury? No. Is it something you can absolutely do with or without? It's 6 ounces, right? So
that's
it's
right.
not. I mean, I've got an extra sit pad on top of. I'm bringing the 1/8 inch the foam pad, right?
Sure.
And I've also got a small generic sit pad. Those are two. They seem to be redundant, but the 1/8 pad to me is mostly about putting under the sleeping pad at night for insulation and to protect it. I don't intend to have it available. It's packed deep in the pack. I don't need it to sit on. And this little folding sit pad, I bought a generic one off of Amazon for $9, and it literally weighs 1 ounce. But what I find important about it, you talk about things you like. Whether you sit on it on a rock in the middle of the day or not, I like it for my knees in the tent, outside of the tent. When you're kneeling down, you're putting your stuff together.
Oh, right. Sure. Yes, absolutely. Yes.
You're trying to get your gear, your sleeping system set up while you're kneeling in your tent. And you feel every rock, every stick, everything that's under the floor of the tent on your knees. And so I've really grown to love it as just something to kneel on in the tent or have just outside the tent.
So you're a month out rather. Is there anything you're thinking of that could still change, or are you pretty dialed in with where you feel you need to be?
No, at this point for gear, I'm dialed in. Nothing's going to change. The one slight debate point, I've got a rain kilt, and I'm
thinking to buy one of those this very night, by the way, just so you know.
I got the Z-Packs one, I think it is. I debated. Here's a funny one, right? So I debated. They have their 1.8 ounce DCF one and their 2.4 ounce whatever stuff, right? And I bought the heavier one because it isn't see-through. Of all the things, right? Not that you're going to necessarily want to go out commando in the rain with your non-see-through kilt.
No, you're not.
But I didn't want that to be see-through for whatever. It's a weird. But the debate still. It's not a debate, but it would be the rain pants versus kilt. I'm taking the kilt. I don't like rain pants.
Rain pants suck. I hate them. Yeah,
for every reason everybody hates them. You wear no pants underneath them, then you got wet, sticky legs always against the pants, and that's just annoying.
Yes.
And I really decided the only thing I care about from the waist down not getting wet is, the waist to the knees, right?
Yes.
I mean, keeping your shorts, even in the top half of your pants and your underwear, things dry. And everything below, I mean, your shoes and socks are going to get wet no matter what.
That's right. Yeah.
Pants or not.
Yeah,
So, so
rain's going to get you quite often on this trip. So it is what it is. You'll just have to live
exactly.
with it. So you're going in a month. We're going to talk about in the next couple of weeks about a number of different things, one of which is your motivation and your inspiration as well. And we'll catch up next week for that then. Okay.
I'm looking forward to it. Thank you, Mighty Blue.
Cheers then. Bye.
Cheers.
I'm adding the list from Lighter Pack to the show notes so you can see the detail of Dave's pack. I think he's been very realistic, balancing weight and comfort for a long hike. And I'm out buying a dozen backpacks. Perhaps a little bit of overkill there, Dave. I must say I'm looking forward to hearing from Dave as he makes progress on trail about those decisions he's made. The tent looks great, and I would not be surprised to see it surpass Z-Packs this year, so popular has it been this past year. In fact, I think Z-Packs have brought out a similar one because of the Durston. Good to see two great companies in healthy competition. Not sure what we'll be talking about next week, so don't forget to reach out if you have any ideas. Finally today, Emily has some unwelcome attention from one of her fellow male hikers. I just want to say that reading this chapter and several others over the weeks, I've been struck by some of the issues that women have to face out on trail and doubtless in everyday life. I wouldn't say I was entirely ignorant of it, but I suppose I became more aware about it by reading Emily's book. And for that perspective, I'm truly grateful to Emily for letting me read it here on the show. I'll see you next week. Chapter 25. Live in the Moment. July the 28th was another new beginning. I was refreshed and about to enter my 13th state. Why Not had left the day before, so I didn't get to see him. The gents and I headed out early in the morning, but not so early that we missed the sunrise over the Connecticut River, the border between Vermont and New Hampshire. We took our pictures and continued the long road walk to Dartmouth College, where we stopped at a diner for breakfast before finishing our stroll through the college town. Then we were back in the woods, where we would stay for a couple of days until we met back up with Batman. One of the gents was starting to get on my nerves. I couldn't quite put my finger on the aggravation. My sixth sense was acting up again. I didn't know if it was me being tired and annoyed easily, or if it was something else. I ignored the feeling for the time being. During the next 2 days in the woods, I met up with Maps and Moxie. I thought they were way ahead of me. They were strong ladies my age who were rocking it on the AT. But a few weeks earlier, Moxie had fallen on a privvy's steps and injured a bum. It sounds funny, but it wasn't. She had a dangerously large hematoma the size of a soccer ball on her buttocks. She had to take time off the trail. When I saw them, they were just out for a day hike to help Moxie get her legs back, but the injured area was still pretty swollen. I hiked for the rest of the day with the girls. At one break on top of a peak, we were laughing and catching up. As we were doing so, the gents also caught up to us. Next time made a very sexist, rude comment about us ladies that only he thought was funny. Even Apples seemed to be embarrassed by it. I was waiting for Moxie to throw next time off the mountain, but she didn't. I guess she was being nice, since she thought he was my friend. The girls and I continued to the next road, where Batman was waiting. We parted ways. They had a few more miles to their car, and I had to wait for the gents. I was getting tired of waiting for people. I liked to help out, but now it was becoming a hindrance when it slowed me down. During our wait, nature called. No big deal. I'd been living in the woods for months. I disappeared into a thicket to take care of business, but that was a bad choice. The place was swarming with mosquitoes. I did not notice them until it was too late. I could not stop midstream or mid-deposit. I had to pee faster and push harder, but nothing helped. My poor Fanny was exposed to the bloodthirsty day vampires. Bruce heard me screaming and had no idea what was wrong. I came stumbling out of the woods with my hiking skirt halfway down. I could not get my sweaty bottoms up fast enough, so I just ran out half-dressed. By the time I had finished, I had bites in places I didn't know insects could reach. It was awful. All because we were waiting to help others. No good deed goes unpunished. The gents finally showed up. Bruce was taking us back to a hotel where we would share a room, the same hotel where Bruce and I had stayed a couple of days before. We were way too nice. I was beginning to regret the offer to share. Next time was really beginning to creep me out. Apples was cool, but next time's true colours were coming through. First of all, he kept calling me by my real name. Real names were reserved for only your best of hiking friends, and he was not one of them. Plus, he kept winking at me. Ew. He even winked at the guys, so I didn't think I was special. But just the same, it creeped me out. We should have backed out of our arrangement, but I felt bad for Apples. No reason for him to suffer because his hiking buddy was a turd. We made it through the night. I was only assaulted by next time's eyes a couple of times. I let Bruce know how I was feeling about this hiker, so he did well to keep between me and the voyeur. August the 1st began a new month on this awesome journey, and also a very exciting section of the trail, the White Mountains. The Whites are known for their treacherous terrain and sometimes deadly weather. I was extremely excited to be entering the White Mountains. Most hikers moan and groan about them, but to me they were just another challenge that would make me stronger. And I had heard that if Mother Nature was cooperative, the views were jaw-droppingly spectacular. Several hikers chose to slackpack over Mount Moosilauke, the first big mountain in the Whites. Thankfully, the gents chose this option. Slacking required being dropped off north of the mountain and hiking south back to the hostel. My hike only allowed me to travel in one direction. I did not blue blaze, and I only travelled north. I left the Hikers' Welcome Hostel in Glencliff, New Hampshire, at 6:20 a.m., hiking solo with a pack weight of only 27.5 pounds. It had taken me 1,790.5 miles to tweak my gear to only necessities. Mount Moosilauke would be our highest and steepest climb in a while, at just under 5,000 feet. I was the queen of slackpacking, but not on this day. Even though I knew this mountain would be tough and slacking would be nice, I wanted all my gear. I wanted to have options in case I needed to spend the night. I may have headed out solo, but I wouldn't be alone. The hostel was full of hikers, mostly Nobos, northbounders, who chose the slackpacking option like Apples and next time. We would pass on the trail again at some point. They were going south and me headed north. Why Not had zeroed at the Hikers' Welcome the day before, and I was sure he would pass me. He might have been visually impaired, but he flew on the trail. I sure did miss him. I would have given anything to have his bantering instead of Mr. Creepy Eyes. You never know what you have until it's gone. After hiking an hour and a half, I was already on my second break and enjoying the solitude. Hiking alone did have its advantages. I loved my hiking buddies, except the ones so noted, but I also loved hiking alone. Solo, I could do whatever I wanted, hike at whatever speed I chose, sing out loud, talk to the trees, break as often as I wanted without feeling like I was holding someone up or annoying them. If anyone heard the conversations I had with squirrels, I surely would have been locked up. But when I hiked alone, there was no one to catch me. I could let the craziness out. It was just like Alka-Seltzer. Oh, what a relief it is. Everyone should try it. Just let loose. In this world, we all have to do so much, act a certain way, to be politically correct. Don't do this, don't do that. You'd be amazed at how talking with the squirrels can make you feel so much better. About 75 yards from the summit of Mount Moosilauke, I could see Turbo coming from the opposite direction. He was slacking with Peace Dog. They were two super friendly young hikers I'd seen from time to time on the trail. They had also spent the night at the hostel. The three of us arrived at the summit together. At the top, we congratulated each other with hugs and high fives. We were separated by a generation and opposite social habits. They loved their cabbage and spirits, and me, not so much. But out there we were friends, respecting each other's choices and truly enjoying the journey together. And if they did see me talking to the animals or hear me singing out loud, they would not have judged. They probably would have joined in. Boy, I loved it out there. The day was splendid, and to top it off, Why Not caught me toward the end of the day. We kept each other company the last couple of miles and finished the hike with some surprise trail magic at a parking lot. We had our fill of food and drinks, thanked our trail angels, and hiked a mile north, where we stealth camped. It wasn't much of a spot, just barely large enough for my tent and his hammock. Sleep came fast. The next morning came even faster. As tired and worn out as I was, a new round of adrenaline was seeping into my blood. I had made it to the Whites, and each morning brought the excitement to get going, as if it was the first day on the trail. The hike from NH 112 to Kinsman Pond Shelter was every bit as beautiful as it was challenging. It began as a relatively gentle push up and over Mount Wolf. My lunch was at Eliza Brook. I cooked a large lunch while I soaked my feet in the cool, refreshing stream, downstream, of course, from where anyone would gather drinking water. I could count on one hand the number of times I cooked at lunch, but since we had been blessed with trail magic for supper the night before, I had extra food and I didn't want to carry it up Kinsman Mountain. I ate my normal lunch and the food I would have had for dinner the previous night. After dressing my happy feet and packing up my smorgasbord trash, I headed up the trail. A lovely stream escorted the trail on the left. The path slowly inclined, but the stream stair-stepped its way, creating small, stagnant pools at the base of many waterfalls. It was aerated by the churning cascades and as clear as a glass of water drawn from a tap. Small pebbles lined the base of each pool. It was so inviting. I passed the first pool 5 minutes after my very long lunch. To swim or not to swim? I hiked on. 2 more minutes of hiking, another pool. To swim or not to swim? I hiked on. A few more minutes of hiking, and I couldn't take it any longer. The summit could wait. Sometimes you just have to live in the moment. I stripped down to my skivvies and was getting ready to go au naturel when 2 young guys paused their hiking a few yards away. I kept my bikini base layer on and told the guys not to worry. I was just going for a swim. That was so kind of them to be considerate. They wanted to swim too, but hiked on to keep their schedule. After the refreshing dip, I redressed into my sweaty clothes and continued up the path. It wasn't long until I heard some hooting and hollering from the 2 guys who had just passed me. They had thrown their agenda over the cliff and also enjoyed the refreshing pools. I arrived at the shelter before Why Not. In the Whites, there are huts, tenting areas and shelters. The shelter was only $8, but I wasn't sure if I wanted to hike on or stay. I chose to stay. The shelter was a nice 3-sided log cabin next to a pond. Why Not showed up later and decided to stay also. I didn't really want to stealth. It's discouraged in the Whites. Plus, the terrain wasn't suitable for tenting. There were too many rocks, and if it wasn't rocky and steep, the ground was too damp with moss. The next morning we had a slow start. We were not in too much of a hurry. Batman couldn't meet us until late morning, and we had less than a 5-mile downhill hike. Never underestimate the downhill hike. Descents are many times harder than the incline, and so was this one. 2 miles out we came to our first hut, Lonesome Lake Hut, run by the Appalachian Mountain Club. The AMC owns and operates non-profit, self-sustaining huts throughout the White Mountains. They are hiker-luxurious cabins in the woods with electricity, running water and hot meals for paying guests. The price is $180 per person, and most hikers think that is outrageous. It is pricey, yes, but if you consider what it costs to provide such amenities in the middle of nowhere on top of mountains, it's a pretty sweet deal. We stopped to the hut for a break. They sold beverages and home-baked goodies to visitors. I had a lemonade. I needed the sugar to power me down the mountain. I also packed out a whoopie pie for Bruce. He loves treats. The 5-mile descent seemed more like 20. We were glad to be out, and once again we were whisked away by Batman. He dropped us off at the Notch Hostel, run by a young couple. It was another wonderful place to stay, and Why Not and I planned to rest up for a couple of days. His ankle and knees had been sore, and my feet could always use a rest. The gents were still hanging around, but they were not staying at this hostel. 2 days of rest and calorie loading was just what I needed. I was lazy. Even though I had access to a full kitchen, I didn't cook. I consumed a box of Fruity Pebbles, Snickers, Milky Ways, a package of gluten-free Oreo knockoffs, a half gallon of milk, Doritos, Fritos scoops, and almost a gallon of Moxie, the drink. Not Moxie, my friend. The second night at the hostel, I overheard a hiking friend, Mr. Peanut Butter, say, "I'm going to town to get a Black Bear special." That grabbed my attention, and I inquired what a Black Bear special was. He replied, Doritos, a Milky Way, and a 2-litre bottle of Moxie. He'd seen me eating those things earlier, and decided he needed some of the same. At home, my diet was healthier, but out on the trail, I ate whatever I wanted and all I could get when the getting was good. I called it the 2,189 diet. Hike 2,189 miles and eat whatever you want and still lose weight. It's a blast.